Thanks very much for taking the time to talk with me and meet with me. You're a professor here in entrepreneurship at Cranfield University. Mm-hmm. Can you just take a bit of time now just to go through where you've come from, how you got to where you are, why you're so focused on entrepreneurship?
I guess without going all the way back, I would have started in industry, interestingly enough, in the so-called 3-day week, when the trade unions were at their peak and before Maggie Thatcher came into power in 1979.
Yeah.
And having worked in industry for about 7 or 8 years, I then decided that I'd come and do an MBA at Cranfield, which is what I did. It was a 1-year full-time program, very, very interesting, high energy. But at the end of that 1 year, I then asked, why did I do the MBA? So I ended up doing a PhD on the topic. And the topic was the social relevance of MBA education.
Okay.
It's kind of asking yourself, what's the purpose behind it, really? And in that, one of the concluding thoughts I had when I finished my PhD was that it would be really good if business schools got themselves more actively engaged in promoting entrepreneurship. I didn't realize at that time when I wrote that's what I would end up doing for the next 30 years. Basically. Yeah. So the transition came through having been in industry, having thought about it a bit, then came into this world. So for the last 3 decades or so, I've been teaching, I've been an educator, do my research, writing papers, etc., etc. But in entrepreneurship, unless you do it as well, it's not really relevant and appropriate. So I have indeed started some companies, grown some companies, shut 2 of them down, invested in 1 or 2 of them. So it's been I guess a summary headline is that I would be a pracademic.
Okay.
And the last 15 years of that 30 or so, a period when I was at Cambridge University, I got really deeply engaged in science and technology-oriented startups and early growth. So technology enabled and technology companies. That's currently, I suppose, where my passion would be.
Wow, fantastic. So with everything that is happening over recent years with AI, with technology coming through, not only are you able to see it through an academic perspective, but also business, real hands-on, see the value that it has.
Yes. The value that I would bring is because obviously as an entrepreneurship educator and mentor, you can't possibly know the deep tech of everything that you're working with. So you have people coming in sustainability and carbon and graphene and I don't know, medical, biotech, chemistry, physics, maths, all sorts of startups coming your way. They know that topic. Yeah. What you need to know as the educator, I suppose, is figuring out how that might become a product, how that might become a service, how it might evolve into an actual business. So there are colleagues of mine who would work on design thinking and so on.
Yeah.
So they would be able to convert those basic technology ideas into products. Mine is saying, cool, but what's the company look like? What's the business model look like?
Exactly.
How do you generate the revenues? How do you build the team around it? What expertise do you need? So that's kind of where my focus is.
Perfect. Okay. So with everything that's happening politically, socially, economically, where do you see the greatest value in business, say, in the next 5 years?
Well, let's focus on the UK for a moment. Because the turmoil in the UK, here we are in early 2019, is pretty significant. The uncertainty is thrown in our direction, right?
Yeah.
And businesses are coping in their own way. The education institutions don't quite know what the hell to do, as indeed the government. So we're all of us thrown into a bit of a melting pot at the moment.
Yeah.
So what that teaches me is that the people who will succeed are the people who will understand how to cope with uncertainty. Right?
Interesting.
Because if you're like frozen in the headlights, whether it's a hard, soft Brexit, this, that, and the other, or Donald Trump's wall and what have you, you just get frozen. You will do nothing. You will wait for things to happen to you. Whereas that part of us, inside part of us, that says, actually, I need to be agile and flexible and figure this out, make sure that I make myself resilient. Well, then Brexit doesn't matter. Yeah. Whatever curved ball is thrown in your direction, or googly if you play cricket, doesn't matter, you cope with it.
So when we talk about uncertainty, if we take a very real example of a 21-year-old, just finished university, has £3,000-4,000 that they've saved up, or however they've got that money, and they have an idea, but they're so scared of investing that money because that's all they have. Are there different ways that you've seen that people can nurture that uncertainty? And
I think the first principles to think about would be your affordable loss. How much can you afford to lose? If you can afford to lose all 3,000 because the bank of mum and dad will look after you at the end of that for a 21-year-old, i.e. you can live at home, and there's a forgiving home environment, so you give it a shot, good on you, come on in, let's feed you and put some cornflakes into you and send you out again to battle another day, good. If you haven't got the luxury of that kind of fallback, and 3,000 is all you've got in your pocket, well, you wouldn't spend more than 1,000, 1,500 of it, and you'd equip yourself to raise 30,000 from somewhere else. But you wouldn't use all 3,000 if you have no contingency. So my first point of advice to any young person is try to figure out what your affordable loss is going to be.
Interesting.
It could be cash, it could be time, Dan, it could be time. I've got 3 months and the 3,000 will go because I've got rent to pay. At the end of that, either I've got it or I haven't. So there are lots of personal circumstances come into it as well.
So from your experience in academia and with entrepreneurs everywhere, is there one attribute that you see that they have that makes them successful in this uncertain environment?
The early stages, I would say, the very early stages would be not to take a risk, but to tolerate a risk. This is where the affordable loss go. How far do I go before I say, you know what, this is turning into a gamble. This is no longer a business proposition. Because the entrepreneurs that I have studied, my academic, as you say, there's a gut instinct level at which you think this is really exciting, and then the rational piece has to kick in and say, does this work? Or do I have enough customers for it? Does this product work, etc., etc.? So if those things, the homework that you do says to you, listen buddy, it ain't gonna work, you draw a line. If the homework that you do says it might work, well, you take one more step, learning by doing. But never put your family and your relationships, things like that, at risk. So tolerate the risk, don't take the risk. You're not a gambler, you're an entrepreneur.
So know what your affordable losses are, and don't go beyond them.
Really, but the issue in entrepreneurship is we're all slightly self-delusional, so we'll always go that one extra step, but don't go the 2 extra steps, because then that's silly.
Okay, and so that's something that entrepreneurs of the future can learn from everyone that we've seen be successful.
I would like especially the rhetoric around risk-taking to reduce and risk tolerance to increase. How far do you go before you say, you know what, that's it? I mean, a compulsive gambler is one who keeps putting money, when the horse racing starts again, will keep putting money on horse racing because the next one's going to be the big winner. Or the famous words, from Fools and Horses from all those years ago, next year, Rodney, we'll be millionaires, right? Del Boy saying that. No, you got to work at it.
Interesting. Okay, so in the next 5 years, there's going to be a lot of changes in almost every walk of life. If you were to say that something is going to come out of left field and completely shock us in whichever area, what would you predict?
I think the computer science guys are still giving us lots of new things to think about, lots of new things. So, we're only scratching the surface now, I think, with AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language programming, and so on. This is a rate of growth which is going to be absolutely astonishing. But I would imagine that we're also having to find new technologies in other areas, as in healthcare. I think the gene sequencing machines are getting ever more effective. So I suspect personalized healthcare, whether it'll be in the next 5 years, I don't know, but I'm hoping there'll be that. Maybe some of our colleagues working in the area of mental health will find a solution or two to people struggling with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, other kind of things. If that happens, it'll be absolutely miraculous for 30-40% of the population that maybe struggle with depression and all sorts of other kind of health issues. So mental health is still, barely understood.
Yeah. And I'm assuming then, because Apple have come out and said similar things about healthcare and wearables supporting that as well, that this is an area where people will see more justification to spend their disposable income.
Yeah.
As we've seen with the new iWatch that's come out, that it's not just a heart monitor, but it does things that are now FDA approved. That we'll see more of those things and more technologies that can support things that we never knew possible.
I genuinely hope so. I mean, research in this field has been going for a long time now. You know, the genius at MIT, a man called Bob Langer.
Okay.
He's got hundreds of patents, dozens of companies. His inventions have already affected the lives of 1 or 2 billion people. I forget the exact number. He had implant ideas, you know, self-healing materials. So there's material sciences coming in our direction. New materials like graphene and various other products are coming through. There's enormous amounts of research being done in universities and in research institutions. And every one of those breakthrough types that one's looking at can make a huge impact. It's going to be our intelligence, our imagination to understand how those things will make a difference to people's lives and try and get them to market. So we relies actually down on people like you, because you have the entrepreneurial nous, plus the intellectual horsepower to be able to translate these emerging sciences into new technologies and new products.
Yeah, okay. So final question I've got for you. As you are that bridge between academia and entrepreneurship, for the 16, 17-year-old who is looking at university now and saying, $9,000 a year for a course, do I want to be in that amount of debt moving forward? How important is education to entrepreneurship, and where does it work best?
Well, there's a cultural bias in asking me that question, because I'm from India, and we generally value any kind of higher quality of education hugely. So as long as a degree is not kind of done in a third-rate environment, in a third-rate quality, I would say it's a long-term debt, you know, and if you can take it, take it. Because if it's going to improve your earning capacity, it'll pay for itself. But more than anything else, it'll help you to grow as a person. You know, the degree is not just a piece of paper. But if you as a student approach that degree with full vigor, and you want to suck everything out of that institution that you can by way of knowledge, you equip yourself in an environment which is really quite friendly at the end of the day. Yes, it's painful, you've got to do exams and tick boxes and all the rest of it. But the value of that is huge. So at the age of 16, 17, when you haven't really decided which way to go, and if I say, well, I love entrepreneurship, but I would never advise 16, 17-year-old just to jump ship and go and do it, because only 1 in 10 companies succeed. So your odds of blowing the £9,000 on a failed venture are higher than the amount of interest you might pay long term on the $9,000 to get yourself educated somewhere. Frankly, you know, it's still an investment. But don't do a useless degree at a useless institution. Pick carefully what it is you do. And you'll find that you will, okay, the other thing is saying at 16, 17, maybe you're not ready for it yet. So go work for a few years somewhere. Come back to higher education later. It's not just all or nothing.
Yeah.
You may just not feel ready at that time to commit to 3 or 4 years of study. Cool. Go and travel. Go find some other way of spending that £9,000, or go get a job. Whatever. Come back to it later, say, actually, I've thought about it, and that's the passion I have now.
Yeah.
So
and it sounds like you're going back to that, not taking a risk in just investing £9,000 in a company when you're 17, but tolerating the risk.
Yeah.
So if the right decision is to go to university, know how that money is going to make itself back. Yeah. And the amount of effort you need to put in to get the higher potential earning jobs.
Yeah, I think so, and I agree. For me, the issue is whatever it is you decide to do in the future, make it meaningful for yourself, your family, your community, you know, for society, which is probably where my increasing passion for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals comes from.
Yeah.
Because any one of those 17 goals gives you a sense of purpose and meaning. And increasingly companies are heading in that direction to say, I want to make a difference. And young 16, 17-year-olds still have some idealism left. Please make a difference on this planet.
Yeah, completely. Well, thank you very much for your time. That's been really, really interesting to learn.
Thanks for the chat, Dan.
Cheers, thanks.